To those listening, welcome. As we explore wonders and mysteries and journey into the realm of unknown. Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Realm of Unknown. I'm your host, Shane, and if you are new to the show and the series overall, just a quick rundown for everyone. This is a paranormal podcast that focuses on all sorts of spooky and bizarre things like ghosts, aliens, cryptids, mysteries and conspiracies, and a lot more. Pretty much all sorts of things. We range from a lot of weird topics here, as seen with the eel episode, if you want to go back a few months. But yeah, if you are a returning listener to the show, not a whole lot new has been changing. Life's been life. Nothing really crazy or, like I said, news been happening. The last month has been pretty, samey for the most part. Just life and work and all that sort of stuff. Enjoying the summer as much as I can. Obviously, with work being insane, a lot of people deciding to take off. And unfortunately, that means that the workload gets pushed onto other people who are not taking off. But I get it, The annual time in which your PTO comes and is taken away from you is slowly approaching. And people had a lot of stuff saved up from the pandemic, so it makes sense, and it's reasonable. And we had an insane year this year. But yeah, so overall, things have been good. Nothing too crazy, nothing too insane. But I hope you guys are doing well. But yeah, podcast-wise, things have been pretty much the same, except for the announcement that I had earlier of the weekend in which this should be uploading, which this should be the weekend of the 20th, I believe, of August. The previous Tuesday of this week, I had the very first installation of the Keystone Curiosities series, which is going to be the Tuesday uploads for the show that focus solely on PA and PA-specific stories. So ghost stories, cryptids, weird, bizarre things, oddities that are here in the state of Pennsylvania, aka the Keystone State. So yeah, that's the only real new thing for the show. Obviously, we still have the Patreon going on if you guys wish to get some bonus episodes each and every week. I say with some hesitation, but it's each week after this initial episode, the one that you're listening to right now, in the main series one, you get a bonus series over on the Patreon, as along with a bunch of other goodies and bonus content, which is patreon.com/realm of unknown if you wish to support the show. But yeah, without further ado, I'm probably, the way I'm going to edit this, you're probably going to be a bit confused because at the very cold open of the show, there was a sort of bizarre sound or video that you were listening to that I pulled the audio from. And you're probably wondering, Shane, what the heck is that? What am I listening to? Headphone listeners, I will do my best to make sure that it does not blow out your headphones and it is a nice smooth transition into my awkward voice. But yeah, so that is actually going to transition into the topic, that little cold opener that we had. And this specifically is actually the Patreon poll winner from last month over on the Patreon page, in which I asked which you guys would like to see for this month's episode. And the winner was the very odd and the very strange and the very controversial phenomena, or I should say highly debated phenomena, that is the trumpets in the sky, or sky trumpets, or sky phones, or etc., etc. It comes with a lot of names, it comes with a lot of hats, and overall it is a very strange phenomena that I was very fascinated in very early in my sort of solo internet escapades and research and stuff, and it was a topic that sparked my interest. It was a topic that I noticed a lot when I was over on YouTube, because if you're not familiar with the show, I was on YouTube, obviously way earlier and doing whatever, but 2015 is when I started Realm of Unknown over on YouTube, and I ran that for roughly 2 years. I was in college at that point, and then I just kind of petered off and died, and then the podcast became a thing at the very tail end of 2018, before I graduated. And yeah, so at that sort of infancy stage of YouTube and the internet and researching topics and being immersed in the paranormal, I came across this topic and rabbit holed through a bunch of videos, saw a bunch of recordings and forum posts and all that sort of good stuff in relation to a weird, strange phenomena known as trumpets in the sky. Sometimes, they're just referred to strange sounds in the sky, the roaring in the sky. But it's a very odd phenomena that a lot of people, particularly on YouTube during these early years, were recording. These are things that, people were reporting for the most part, via internet blogs. People were talking about it, and we will discuss a specific example earlier in which does not relate to these sort of early to mid 2000s and 2010 uploads. But it's a phenomenon that a lot of people were physically recording on their phones, capturing the audio, capturing videos, and uploading them to YouTube with a lot of, questions and curiosity behind them. People were mainly just posting them as like a question in and of themselves, being like, what's going on? Is anyone else hearing the sound? And it would just be them, looking out of their windows, being in their backyards, hearing these very loud, bizarre sounds that are being picked up on presumably very old phones. For the most part, I don't think. I mean, obviously, people probably did record with video cameras, but this is during the height of the iPhone and the iPods and all those good flip phones that were now transitioning into smartphones. And people were recording them on those devices. So if you've ever recorded on a iPhone from like 2009 or earlier, the video audio is not the best, but very distinctly you can hear these very loud, massive sounds that are being played in the background, sometimes under or over top of the individual speaking in the video. And now, obviously, there's always the caveat that, hey, perhaps this is altered in some way, shape, or form, because obviously it's YouTube, so always going to have that grain of salt. But as you heard in the cold open, it's very bizarre, and this became a social phenomena all over YouTube for a very long, long time, and continues to be so today. This is a very wide-scale phenomena, weird supernatural one that does have a lot of theories in the scientific field. But to this date, thousands of people across different countries and continents all over the globe have recorded and witnessed the unexplainable sound phenomena that is, again, trumpet sounds in the sky. This overall phenomena is relatively unknown in origin when being heard. So most of the time when people are getting the recordings, they don't know where it's coming from. They can't really pinpoint where it's coming from either, for the most part. And that's a overarching similarity between a lot of the reports, because outside of that, it does vary. As I mentioned in the beginning, it has a lot of different names to it, and that just has to do with the variety of it. But the trumpet sounds in the sky are also described with a variety of different auditory descriptions. And what I mean by that is, even though they're lumped into the umbrella of trumpet sounds and the umbrella phenomena that is the trumpets in the sky, the sounds and the sensations associated with it are not always that of a trumpet. For instance, people have reported the sound of a roar, very similar to an animal. The rumbling sensation, sometimes it is often described as being more mechanical in nature, either the creaking of metal, a sound similar to that of a jet engine, or a very high-speed train, even though that's not seen in the sky or that's not nearby to create those sounds. And there's also one which is a bit more bizarre, and it kind of has its own sub description to it, and that is the phenomena of sky phones, in which the sound being described is more closely associated to that of a giant like speaker system, which is really bizarre. But it's like its own little subcategory within this overarching sort of bizarreness. Like I said, most people have been recording these for a while. It kind of kicked off in 2011 a lot over on YouTube, but videos were coming out prior to that. Videos have continued to come out since that point, even until in very recent years and months over, and then I will get to that. Even way prior to that, there were conspiracy theories, books, research being conducted way, way before 2011. And again, we will discuss that as we get into some of the theories behind what is going on. So, the sounds themselves are not the sounds themselves are more so being associated with the frequency of the sound. That's kind of how most of these things are being lumped together into this overarching phenomena. Because obviously there are things out in the world that make weird sounds in the sky, like the example of a jet plane. Jet planes do make that sound if they are nearby. Explosions going off, if there's like a construction thing, yada yada, etc. There's a lot of things that could make strange sounds. But the phenomena itself is more so associated with the frequency of the sound, and in a lot of similar descriptions and cases, the long droning out of said sound. Oftentimes it's like, several minutes long or whatever. Like it goes on. It's not just like once you hear it, it's gone forever. This is something clearly they're able to go and get a device, come back and record it for long enough to then get it uploaded. So it's definitely lingers more than a lot of the examples that it could potentially be. As it turns out, though, as I mentioned a little bit ago, the sounds themselves have been kind of changing. And what I mean by that is witnesses and people who claim to hear these sounds during the pandemic, so from 2020 on to now, are reporting that the sounds are different than they used to be, or that they're more ominous than they used to be overall in a weird way. So people who kind of look into this, people who collect the stories, are realizing that the frequency again of these sounds, of these trumpets, of whatever they are, is becoming a bit more ominous. It's becoming a bit more like, I guess it's going to A minor essentially or whatever. But it's has a weird kind of strangeness to it that's now like pitch shifting down. And a lot of times now people are associating it more to the idea of it sounding like a roar, which we gave the example of earlier. Sounding more like an animal, like a roaring animal up in the sky. And in some cases, and I don't really know how people are describing this or what this sound actually sounds like, but they're describing it as like the gates to hell. So in my mind, my first association with that is that perhaps they're hearing like a groaning or like a wailing sound in the sky, which honestly would probably be the creepiest of all the sound examples. But I honestly don't know what the gates to hell sound like, but that is apparently an association that a lot of people have. And overall, this weird phenomenon does have some associations with like end of days and like the day of judgment, like apocalypse type stuff, very biblical stuff. Because I think a lot of people associate it with like the walls of Jericho type nonsense, which I do want to do a bonus episode on because there's a really, really fascinating theory out there that links some of the biblical events in the Bible, specifically the walls of Jericho. And I think oh God, what's the city where everyone was gay? And it was like an amazing city, and then God just like nah, and got rid of them all. Oh, I can't remember the name of it. Whatever, CCD didn't teach any of that stuff. But there's a really fascinating theory, side tangent out there that links a lot of them together with a more grounded theory as to what potentially these more ancient people were witnessing. So that's not going to be this week's Patreon bonus series, but it will be a bonus episode for this month, so stay tuned for that. Um, but side tangent, we rolled off of the trumpets being associated with biblical stuff, but I'm not going to get into that specifically because I want to get into some of the more scientific theories first rather than the bizarre ones. Because really, this is the meat of the theories, or I should say, the meat of what I personally believe this is and what most people personally believe this is. This phenomena really is like a phenomena. It's not really a supernatural thingy. Like it could be, obviously, you never know. But this more so falls into the category of bizarre natural event rather than, the gates to hell are opening up or the stairs, descendant of angels are coming from the sky or whatever nonsense. This is more a natural thing, and some of the scientific theories really do explain it. And the two culprits that are essentially at fault is the relation between the sun and the earth itself. So scientists believe that the source of these strange, manifested auditory phenomena have to do with a weird combination of gravity waves and just energy overall being like hit into the earth from the sun, and specifically coming from the separate sphere layers around the earth, obviously, which makes up the sky, which is where this phenomena is occurring. Specifically within the magnetosphere, the ionosphere, and the upper atmosphere. So, one of, if not the biggest culprit that scientists believe have to do with these strange sounds is a very powerful, or just in general, solar flare hitting these sphere layers of the Earth. The impact of the solar flare, even though this is energy, the impact of these waves, which are the flares, cause a sort of shock wave to emanate across these spheres of the Earth, because it's a very powerful electromagnetic radiation wave that's coming from the sun of all things, which is literally one of the most powerful things in our galaxy, or not galaxy, our solar system, just bombarding our atmosphere. That connection, or that relation, is what scientists are believing is the culprit as to why there's a weird auditory sort of outcome, or I guess byproduct, that people are now capturing, and people are obviously able to report it more often now. People are able to see it more often now, and we have more relation to it. So this is the main theory behind it, and it's a fairly good theory, which makes a lot of sense. It's sound waves being created by these massive cosmic phenomena hitting the earth, and it makes sense as to now why it would ripple, why it has no point of origin, why it's just emanating out in the sky. Now, there are some theories as to it being a sort of skyquake, which, if you're not familiar, is like another weird phenomena that happens up in the sky. I think there's a few potential causes to it, such as like a meteor entering the atmosphere or exploding up in the sky. Essentially, it's just like, again, shock waves that are emanating and radiating out into the sky. And obviously, most people probably know this, but a lot of people probably don't, because people are not smart anymore. But like elementary school type science, that we learned that energy kind of runs through different phases of matter in a different way. So if you scream into a pillow, it's going to sound different than if you scream out into the air or if you scream underwater, because the sound waves have to move through that material and they move differently. So, similar to how we have earthquakes, we could have skyquakes, we have sea quakes, whatever. We have lunar quakes, for goodness sake. So that is generally another kind of explanation as to what this might be in a more scientific aspect. But you're probably wondering, and if you're coming here and you're listening to this show, you are most likely here for the more bizarre and the more supernatural explanations for this sort of stuff. And there are a few, as most things in the world tend to have. But these ones more so have to do with conspiracy stuff, rather than it being a supernatural phenomena overall. These specifically fall under the umbrellas of aliens, which obviously, and government conspiracies, which obviously. And again, we're going to do conspiracies next month. I know, I'm sorry, they got pushed back, but unfortunately, they are big boys and they have to have their own time. And work did not allow for them. So, a lot of the common theories for conspiracy stuff, a lot of people associate them with alien activity. Some people believe that they are related to the military or people digging underground. So they believe that there is a sort of hum as a side effect to the U.S. population's essentially control experiments. And that one is specifically in relation to the CIA using low frequency emitters to quote unquote reprogram people's behavior. If you're familiar with the story that we did a while back for the Havana syndrome, which is another weird auditory phenomena that was specifically targeting U.S. embassy workers, Canadian embassy workers in Savannah, Cuba, back in, I think, 2020 is when it started. I could be wrong. But it's a weird phenomena that is very similar to this. I don't believe people kind of umbrella them together, but it's kind of that general low frequency auditory rearranging of our brains via some sort of government conspiracy. And the hum essentially comes from another theory known as the buzz, because there's a conspiracy theorist out there by the name of Chuck Zolsky, who dubbed the buzz back in the 90s because specifically he believes, and I heard this one before, that they're under the city of Teos, New Mexico, again, back in the 90s. The CIA slash secret government slash whomever, military, whomever, I think it's the military, is constructing a sort of secret base or secret tunnel underneath the city of Teos, and the byproduct of that construction miles underground is causing weird sound vibrations to emanate up out of the ground and move throughout the sky, and that is what people are hearing. Obviously, also the construction of the secret base is also in relation and being helped by aliens, because of course conspiracies cannot be, single layered. They have to involve other stuff. But the underground sort of work, whatnot, a lot of people report that pretty much all over the place, really. It's not an uncommon thing that people theorize. Does sound kind of weak. However, a lot of people do, again, record weird booms and vibrational sounds that don't have any physical thing on the ground or in the sky. So they're like, it has to be underground. It's a thing. But others believe that the phenomena has to tie directly into the activities of UFOs, or UAPs that they are now dubbed, that are, some people believe that they have connections with I can't pronounce this. Seismic activity. I don't know why I wanted to make it like a different word, but that UFOs and seismic activity are linked in some way, shape, or form, and that because they're linked, they are the culprits behind the weird trumpet sounds. So, it's another thing, again, people are reporting and people are theorizing around. And again, this is all sorts of connected to other theories because they also do connect back to the underground stuff and the underground forces that are down there. Uh, it's an interesting one. Conspiracy theories are going to be an interesting one. But ultimately, though, no one really does know what the trumpets in the sky phenomena is. Again, the closest believed theory is the idea that cosmic waves of some sort are hitting our atmosphere, and because of that collision, there's some sort of audio feedback or whatnot that is the result of that. But again, it's a theory, even if it is the more scientifically sound one. We can't really have an explanation for every single account every single time. And obviously, these are happening all over the world. They're happening across different, throughout the year, different times of day. Multiple people are seeing it. So it is a bit of a strange thing. It's a bit of a strange phenomena that, again, does not have a super, super sound explanation, even though there is one, technically. But it's a weird thing, and I wanted to share this. Again, this was the Patreon poll winner from last month to carry over into this month. And if you wish to help out, and if you wish to partake in polls similar to this to get your vote out there, to listen to episode topics that you wish to listen to from suggestions that I provide, oftentimes they are themed. This time was strange phenomena. Before we had haunted colleges. Before that we had cryptids. Before that we had haunted states, etc., etc. If you wish to do so, you can go over to patreon.com/realm of unknown, and you can support the show with a $1, $3, or $5 donation, which each level will get you extra bonuses, but in general, you will get monthly polls, bonus episodes like the one that you'll get after this upload, behind the scenes stuff. So you will get behind the scenes content, sort of previews of things that are being announced ahead of time. And you'll also get some goodies such as some content from investigations that I've been on here around the Philadelphia area, such as photos and EVP recordings from ghost hunting, because there is a few that are interesting from some of the haunted locations in Philly. So yeah, if you wish to support the podcast, check out the Patreon. That's patreon.com/realm of unknown. And if you can't help financially, totally get that. But it would really, really mean a lot if you were to help out the podcast by leaving a 5-star review wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts that allow it, such as Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, GoodPod, wherever. Preferably 5-star, but I do understand if you need to be a bit critical. I am a big boy. I am able to handle that. Thankfully, our critiques have allowed me to deal with that a bit better, I think, than I normally would. But definitely feel free to leave a 5-star review if you did enjoy this. It really does mean a lot. It goes a super, super long way in providing a sort of good defense against the algorithm that is constantly shifting in this very competitive environment. And feel free to share it and send it to some friends, or just check us out on social media. We're pretty much Realm of Unknown everywhere. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever. Realm of Unknown, whether or not I'm just shit posting against wannabe political candidates here in PA, Dr. Oz, on Twitter, or I'm just promoting stuff on Instagram. Definitely go check it out. I do announcements there for episodes in the future. And I also follow a lot of people who are really awesome podcasters that you've heard either me mention or run promos with. So definitely go check it out if you do want to sort of immerse yourself a bit more into this community, especially as we're dipping our toes into the autumn season in just a few weeks, which is insane. But yeah, until then, this is it for this episode. I hope you guys did enjoy the Trumpets in the Sky. And until next time, remember to stay spooky.